everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and we are going to be talking about professional wrestling here on this old podcast here for a couple of hours, easily, on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes, or on your favorite podcast application, wherever it is you're listening to me right now. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Would even be even more appreciative if you left a like on YouTube, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, or a 5-star rating on Spotify, or why not all three? Just, search for me everywhere and, give maximum recommendations, because a podcast has to grow. This is how it grows, right? A podcast is like a plant or a child, and it has to grow. So, help, and it takes a village to grow a plant or a child. Okay, so we are talking contracts tonight. Look, contract season 2026 has been a really exciting, chaotic, busy season. I find there's been stuff all over the place. We've been talking about contracts for the past couple of weeks, and then there's just been like a flurry of stuff happening. Of course, we're going to go through as much of the information and stuff that's been happening, and against my better judgment, I reviewed officially the TNA on AMC debut. See, now it has me botching words as if I needed help botching words, but I explain it essentially in the review. Despite the fact that I did a watch party live on stream last Thursday, I still felt compelled, some weird urge, some dark urge to sit down and review the show, and I did that. So that'll be for your entertainment. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Thank you all very much for being here. Without any further ado, let's just get right to it. Let's start things off with some fresh contract news. I mean, folks, let's be real here. The contract season this year, 2026, has been quite a ride. Up and down, exciting stuff. It feels like every day there's something new. It feels like there's always something else happening. There's something new going on. There's someone that's leaving, someone that's not being renewed, there's always something happening. And that's exciting. That's good because, that makes good content for us. The content creators, the podcasters, the discussers, and all of that. So let's start by chatting about which I believe is the biggest news, I think, to be around right now in contract season, and that is the free agency, or at least as temporary as it is, of Powerhouse Hobbs. Sean Ross Sapp reported yesterday on January 14 during the broadcast of AEW Dynamite that Powerhouse Hobbs' contract was up at midnight yesterday. And he also said in his report that, and this had been rumored for a couple of weeks, I think at this point, or at least since last week, Sean reported that, or at least continued saying that WWE was expecting him to go to their shores, to end up being a part of the company. And last week, I think even Dave Meltzer had said that they were very high on him, and we talked about that. I believe even on Stream Monday, I think, but I can't remember exactly. But we did talk about it. We did just mention it, and I sort of lifted my arms and said, well, why wouldn't you not be interested? Be very high on Powerhouse Hobbs, right? It's like you're supposed to be the market leader. You're supposed to have all of these scouts, these great eyes for talent. Well, yeah, you should be. You should be looking out for Powerhouse Hobbs. So he's been. So that was in the news. That was in the news, and then. Well, that was in the news. That was reported by Sean Ross Sapp yesterday. And then we had we had some extra news earlier today being January 15, the day we're recording this, on Wrestling Observer Radio. Dave Meltzer gave an update on Powerhouse Hobbs departing AEW and heading to WWE. Meltzer notes that WWE has been expecting to add Hobbs to the roster for a while. This is what Dave had to say, quote, with Hobbs, WWE had expected that they had Hobbs for actually quite a while. I know that they thought that the match last Wednesday was going to be his last one, but he actually did a match, I believe, on Collision. That will air on Saturday, so that will be his last match. His contract actually expires today, basically at midnight, right? Midnight on the 15th. But yeah, WWE expected him to go there. AEW made an offer. He turned down the AEW offer, wanted to go to WWE. We'll see. For some people, it's the right move. For some people, it isn't. That's goddamn Dave. That's some analysis for you. that is some some analysis right there. Though WWE has been anticipating Hobbs' arrival, Meltzer speculates that Tony Khan keeping Hobbs on television means that AEW was not certain he would be leaving until recently. Here's another quote from Dave here. Tony liked him in everything and he was professional. Tony didn't take him off TV, so that tells me he didn't know he was going. But like I said, WWE, they were pretty confident. They've had him for months, really. So that's the overall gist of it. And I think we've also pretty much all heard at this point that not only Hobbs decided to go to WWE and turn down AEW's offer, but he turned down AEW's much more lucrative offer. Apparently a six-figure deal was not sufficient to keeping Powerhouse Hobbs in the company. He just wanted to go to WWE, and he's clearly had his mind set on it for a while. And I'm not quite sure what happened here, because you know and I know that Tony Khan has a tendency to keep people who are leaving for WWE off of his they have a tendency to keep these people off of his television on the way to while they're on the way to WWE. He has a tendency to take them off TV. And he didn't do that with Hobbs. Hell, he had him wrestling right to the very last minute. Although, there is a precedent that exists with Andrade. So, it's not necessarily unusual that Tony has done this, that he's kept the guy on TV. But you maybe have an impression here, right? That maybe you have an impression that Hobbs, that Tony Khan was convinced that he was going to be able to hang on to Hobbs. Maybe he felt really confident that he was able to convince him to stay and not go to WWE. But clearly Hobbs has had his sights set on doing WWE, which, quite frankly, is okay. I can't blame him. Like I can't blame the guy for doing it. There are circumstances in which I've mocked pro wrestlers for taking less money and sort of, hanging on to the dream of WWE, right? Because WWE right now, laughing all the way to the bank, signing this guy here for less money than he was getting offered for AEW, and they're like, ha ha ha. And all they really had to offer him outside of the money was a dream, was, a moment, a WrestleMania moment, whatever it is. Hobbs was clearly invested in whatever they had to offer outside of the money. And again, I've poked fun at Stephanie Vicaire. I've poked fun at Mariah May for doing this. I find myself having a little more difficulty doing this with Hobbs, because Hobbs has been a mid-carder all throughout. I think he perceives himself as a guy who can shine a little more than how AEW was treating him. And I don't blame him. I don't necessarily think he was poorly treated, but you would think that a guy with that kind of size would have maybe a little more presence on television. Maybe Tony didn't quite know exactly what to do with him. I couldn't tell you exactly. The point is that this guy wanted to go to WWE. And he wanted to, and at this point he's like, look, if I take the bigger deal and I decide to stay with AEW and I remain in the exact same spot, what the fuck am I doing? For him, the money wasn't necessarily what he needed to pass up. He wanted to go test the water somewhere else. He wanted to see, look, my ceiling in this company is here. Will my ceiling become higher elsewhere? We'll go check. And I have less of a problem with that than, let's say, Mariah May, who is a star in one place, and a truly appreciated top star in the division, heading off and taking less money than when she was doing so that she can live her WWE dream. Same thing with Stephanie Vicaire, who was, for all intents and purposes, for American audiences, a completely unknown commodity. And she decided to take less money to go to WWE. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's working out for her. I'm not saying that it's not working out. But I have a tendency to sort of scoff at that type of situation a lot more than Hobbs, who has clearly hit a ceiling and wants to head to WWE to test out the waters, even if he's going to be paid less. That's fine. The thing that bugs me is that TKO has these people squeezed by the balls then, because then they're like, well, we will offer you less than your former employer. And if you don't want that deal, well, you can go back and work for your former employer. We're not going to stick around here and try to negotiate with you. You're just, a mid-card guy. This is the money we're going to pay you. Take it or leave it type of thing. So that still sucks, That's something that stinks, because this is never forget, this is $1 billion company that should be able to, in fact, that is able, not just should, but is able to pay big time salaries for these wrestlers, is 100% able to do that. So, look, I can't blame the guy for packing it up and heading elsewhere. As I also like to say often, movement in pro wrestling is good. It's important. And this is a guy who can take advantage of it. A guy like Hobbs, who has clearly hit his ceiling in AEW, and then maybe we'll see how it turns out. But maybe in WWE, at the very least in WWE, he has the opportunity to come in and start with a clean slate and see how far he's able to go. And maybe he will come back to AEW one day. Maybe it won't work out. Who knows? At least he went out and tried, and you can't take that away from him, right? That's just as simple as that. And that's good. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, well, he's better off going to WWE because they know how to handle big men, right? And I would say that for a while, this was the truth. This was a true statement that you could head over to WWE, that if you head over to the WWE, it was the land of the giants, it was the big guys, and Vince loved his big guys and knew how to book his big guys. I don't think that's the case anymore, though. I don't think that's true anymore. I think that WWE now is not as receptive because, look, they ended up firing Braun Strowman. They don't know what to do with Omos, right? They're still, they sent him to Noah. They bring him back. Now they're having him do AAA. Like they don't know what to do with him. And now they're, they're zeroing in on Obafemi, who is like the only guy that they're pushing as a big, huge, imposing, strong dude, right? Because again, they have a guy like Jeff Cobb. Don't know, Jeff Cobb's nothing special. JC Mateo, pardon me. So yeah, I think there was a time that was true, but I don't think this is the truth anymore. I don't think that's the thing anymore. Hobbs clearly betting on himself, deciding that, money is not the main driver here. He wants to raise his ceiling. He wants to raise his profile. And maybe he'll just go to WWE and prove everyone wrong that, didn't want him to pierce through the ceiling that had been set out for him, or it'll just be a bad decision that he'll regret. We'll have to see. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. To be continued, but yeah, I mean, that was very surprising. Now, by the way, do I think like this is this huge detrimental loss to AEW? No, I don't. I think it's kind of unfortunate because I think that Hobbs does have upside. How much upside? I don't know. People saying, oh, he could have been world champion. I don't know. But I think he definitely had something that was extremely different for the AEW roster, which is mostly made up of slimmer, more, slimmer, fit dudes, not these big jack guys. Hobbs stood out because of that. Hobbs was absolutely remarkable because of that. So, I can't tell you, or at least I don't think he was world championship material. I don't think he was a top guy, but he could probably, get up there. I think there was more blood to squeeze from this stone, quite frankly. I don't think it's a fumble. I don't think it's one of these things where it's like, oh my God, like this isn't a Cody. It's not a CM Punk. It's not as if Hangman Page suddenly decided to go to WWE or Swerve or, we should all calm our collective tits here, and look, he's going to do the same pattern that most of these AEW transplants have done. Is like he's going to come in and he's going to get a nifty little push for a couple of weeks, depending on how much reaction he gets, and then he's going to meld into the rest until they truly find something to do with him. That's how it's going to work. Is he going to main roster? Is he going to NXT? Is he going to AAA? I don't know what the plan is. We'll find out soon enough. I mean, look, they might even plant them in the Rumble. Signings of Vanity Project, Keanu Carver, and Eli Knight, which is really funny. I think Eli Knight is really funny because Eli and Knight, I feel, refers to LA Knight because Eli was the first name of LA Knight's former in-ring name, which was Eli Drake, if you recall. And now it's LA Knight, so it's really like a combination of both anyway. Before Tuesday's episode of NXT, it was announced that several talents have signed the Vanity. It was announced that several talents have signed. That's a weird sentence. That's very poorly written there. John. There were several talents that were signed to NXT deals this Tuesday. The Vanity Project, which is Jackson Drake, Brad Baylor, and Ricky Smokes, along with Eli Knight and Keanu Carver. They all got NXT deals. And Drake was a WWE ID talent and is the current Evolve champion, who was paired with Baylor and Smokes on Evolve. The trio has made multiple appearances on NXT. Smokes and Baylor were under WWE ID deals and wrestled as Swipe Right. Knight began wrestling in 2018 and joined the ID program last October. Last month, he lost to Tavion Heights in the number one contenders tournament for a shot at the men's speed championship. Can you imagine? Carver was a defensive tackle at Temple. Before embarking on a career in professional wrestling, he attended the WWE tryouts over WrestleMania 38 week in Texas and made his NXT debut that same year and was part of the breakout tournament in 2023, losing to Riley Osborne in the opening round. I don't know who these people are, but since we're talking about contracts and people being added to rosters and whatnot, I wanted to point this out. So cheers to all of these goofballs. Congratulations on their NXT contracts. Rick Souse, nice to see you. Pal, friend, welcome to the chat. Also nice to see you, Terry Fabulous. Hobbs debuting at the Rumble, staring at Cody while Corey Graves goes, oh, there's some elite history between these two. That's excellent. You absolutely have a future for writing professional wrestling. Let's keep going. The other big news, now let's say we move over to we were talking about WWE moves. Let's talk about some AEW moves. The Rascalz were confirmed to have been signed to AEW as of last night's edition of AEW Dynamite, the Maximum Carnage show. The four-man faction made up of Trey Miguel, Zachary Wentz, Myron Reed, and Desmond Xavier has departed the TNA roster and signed with AEW as confirmed on Wednesday night. Shortly after, a report from Fightful Select noted that all four wrestlers had inked a deal with AEW. The promotion ran a graphic on Dynamite promoting that the Rascalz are quote-unquote coming soon. And this is the graphic right here with the, there we go, with the mushroom. Y'all see this have they, you know, in a lot of circumstances, people like when their characters evolve. They like it when their professional wrestlers evolve from their previous personas. So I'm looking at this, and does this mean that the Rascalz now no longer do weed but have moved on to mushrooms? Is this the gimmick here? Is this the evolution of the Rascalz? Their next step. Anyway, good for them, and they have the Mickey Mouse hand here as well. Tremendous stuff. This has been a bit of a twisty turny thing, right? Because PW Insider's Mike Johnson reported that those that he spoke to believed that the Rascalz, including Myron Reed, and I think this was like on Tuesday or even Wednesday. I think on Tuesday. I don't quite remember the timeline, but he had found out that they were no longer contractually bound to the promotion, right? And then a few hours after the PW Insider report, Sean Ross Sapp on Twitter stated that Myron Reed was never under a contract there. And then according to Johnson's report, Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel had deals that expired at the end of 2025, and TNA did not pick up their options for the year. And Desmond Xavier, who returned to the company after being given the boot by WWE in October 25, was working without a contract. So you had all these guys running around and they were either on the verge of no longer having a contract or didn't even have one in the first place. And I mean, it's a career. Like this little bit here fits perfectly into their career, quite frankly, right? Because it's been these guys together, right, and separate and whatnot. It's been really, really wild. If I got my timeline correct here, 2018, Wentz and Xavier and Miguel and Reed, they formed the Rascalz, right? This is in 2018. When Xavier and Miguel, they debut on Impact Wrestling shortly thereafter. Then in November 2020, the trio leave Impact Wrestling. Then in December 2020, Xavier and Wentz signed with WWE while Miguel went his own separate way, right? Miguel then returned in January 2021, like a month later, he returned to Impact Wrestling. Meanwhile, Xavier and Wentz become Wes Lee and Nash Carter, right? What was the MSK. And then they win tag team gold a couple of times. Then April 2022, Nash Carter, right? Zachary Wentz, he gets released from WWE because of an unfortunate picture that was that was floated on the internet and got people really, really upset. And if you don't know what it is, go Google it. And it turns out that it's not as savage as people thought it was. Anyway, so he was released, and then Wentz on the independent circuit reunited the Rascalz with Miguel and Reed. Then Wentz goes to Impact Wrestling in 2023. Then in mid-2024, Wentz and Miguel reunite with Lee in WWE before Lee turned on the Rascalz to feud with them. And that was his big heel turn, if you remember that. Then at the end of 2024, Reed departs the stable, then returns in mid-2025, which, this is like back and forth stuff. Then Lee is released by WWE. He becomes Desmond Xavier again, reunites with the Rascalz in November 2025, and in January 26, right here, all four of them reunite. Boom, they're on Dynamite. They're in AEW. They get teased on Dynamite. That's just wild. Like that is a crazy ass career between us all. That's just nuts. I mean, it's just completely all over the place. Anyway. I think this is a pretty good pickup. I think this is a good pickup. In the vein of, AEW liking to put on multi-person party matches, right? This is what they fit right in here. They 100% fit absolutely right into this situation. So if that's what they want to get into, right? If WWE, if AEW is investing, so to speak, in these high flyers that can have multi-man matches, these crowd pleasers, I mean, these guys that's exactly what they do, the X Division and so on and so forth, and the tons of scrambles that they've been on the indies. Like, this is what they're for, right? Do I think like it's a game changer pickup for AEW? No, I don't think so. But I'll tell you what I think this is, though. I think this is Tony Khan, and along with the other people that he's been picking up, like, with Jake Doyle specifically, I think all of this kind of has to do with him firing some shots at TNA, where he's going like, hey, you know what? You guys want to come on cable TV? You want to come pick up a share? You want to come pick up a share of this market? You want a slice of the pie? Well, you're going to have to play with the big boys here. You're going to have to start hanging with people who are already on this territory and who know how to play it. Yesterday, between these announcements and the others that we're going to talk about, Tony Khan just completely obliterated the attention in regards to TNA versus what he was doing. And do not think that this was not calculated. Do not think that these dual contract announcements that we're going to get to were completely, fortuitous and just happened out of nowhere. This was all planned. And if he wants to play that game, all the more power to him. He's had that game played to him more often than not. He should be able to play this. He should be able to hop onto the same type of territory and lay some smack down as well. I'm completely for this. And he should do it more. Like, that's basically what he's saying. He's taking over the attention with all of these, all this attention, right? I was listening to Joe Lanza earlier today, and Joe says, he speculates as to whether or not, considering the timing, right? Just the timing. Would Tony Khan, at any other moment in the year, would he have picked up the Rascalz? And, Joe basically says, probably not. But considering that these are TNA guys who were on TNA just a couple of weeks ago, and that the show is starting the very next day. Joe's speculating to say, well, he brings in the Rascalz, he brings in the Jake Doyle, and the impression that this gives is that people are fleeing, they're jumping away from TNA, even though TNA is on the cusp of starting on AMC, like entering an entire new era with a much wider potential audience. Despite that, they're jumping off. They're jumping off. I don't hate that theory. I don't know if I agree with it, but I don't hate it. I don't know if Tony would have never picked up the Rascalz if it wasn't for this particular timing. But the idea, the perception, right? Because everything is perception. Even Matt Hardy told us it doesn't matter whether TNA is truly the number 2 promotion or not. It's a question of perception, right? So he was saying, so the idea is the perception would be that TNA, that wrestlers from TNA are jumping ship just as they being TNA, are about to jump into a really successful era. Like the biggest debut, TV debut that they've had in years, in a decade. So interesting. It's very, very interesting. But I mean, I like this pickup. I think, is it controversial to say that I think the Rascalz are a good pickup? I think it'll be interesting at the very least. They'll debut next week. We'll see where they fall. I think they're a perfect fit for Collision, quite frankly. I think they're perfect for AEW's pure wrestling show. Just giving a little different style. The guys running around doing high flying flips and stuff like that. I think, why not? So we're going to follow up to some stuff we didn't get to on the Thursday stream, because I wanted to talk on the Thursday stream about all of the contract situation. It's contract season in pro wrestling, and that's always exciting. And I wanted to talk about it a little more on Thursday, but the main attraction was the fact that we were doing a watch party for TNA on AMC. God rest my weary soul. We did it, but we didn't go through all of the news. We talked about Willie Hobbs. We talked about the Rascalz as well. And we're going to circle back to all of this, and we're going to talk about the contract stuff. And we're going to start by talking about the Rascalz again, because it's kind of like the biggest news to have popped out over the past 24 hours. We're recording this on Monday, the 19th. So it's kind of like the freshest, biggest news around the entire contract situation. I believe it all started yesterday when rumors started circulating that Trey Miguel was no longer going to be. Well, first of all, it started on Saturday when the Rascalz did their Collision debut, and they did a little bit, right, where they smoke weed, and there were only 3 of the 4 Rascalz who were there. And that people thought it was a little strange. Wait, where's Trey Miguel? Trey Miguel was working. Zachary Wentz was there. Desmond Xavier was there. Myron Reed was there. But we were like, well, where's the other guy? Where's Trey Miguel? So then you start hearing rumors and things start going around, and suddenly, all of a sudden, you have Trey Miguel, who posts on his Instagram stories on Sunday, saying he's taking a break from wrestling. And this is the exact quote that he used. Taking a break from wrestling, please respect my space and don't tag me in any posts or comments. Go support the Rascalz still. Fightful Select has since reported that Miguel, this was all on Sunday, that Miguel had been released from the AEW contract he recently signed. The report noted that he is on amicable terms with the company. Now, this is a flashbang. Everyone was sort of stunned at this, rubbing their eyes like he literally just got signed. What the hell happened? It just came out of left field. Didn't even have the chance to appear on TV, and it's like, no, hit the bricks. After following news of the release, there's something. Dave Meltzer reported that something happened from higher than Tony Khan as a reason for him to be released from the company. So this is from Josh Nason on the Figure 4 Online Wrestling Observer website. It's still unclear on the full story behind Trey Miguel's AEW release, but our Brian Alvarez had some updates on the latest Wrestling Observer Radio, available for free on YouTube, etc. Alvarez and Dave Meltzer discussed the news around Miguel, who said on Sunday he is taking some time away from wrestling, with a report coming out that he had been released from his AEW contract days after signing it. This is a quote from Brian Alvarez. No one's really saying much. Well, people are saying certain things, but my understanding is, whatever it is, it came from up above. I don't know, I know there's a lot of rumors, but it had nothing to do with anybody in AEW talent, anything like that, or Tony Khan. Something happened from way up, and he was released. So that perked up a lot of ears, and people were like, "Oh, okay, so he got fired from his contract after someone higher up in Warner Bros. Discovery sort of nixed the idea, right?" I saw a lot of, and we started speculating quite a bit. There was a lot of stuff going on, and look, in some of my group chats and whatnot, and there was a lot of talk about this on the internet too. There's a lot of things that Trey Miguel has said in the past, tweeted, I should say, put out there that comes across rather poorly. Some things that were a little homophobic, some things that were anti-Semitic. There's all sorts of things. He has an All Lives Matter post. There's a lot of things that Trey Miguel posted on the internet a few years ago that may have contributed to this. Like we're assuming this is what it is. And it's sort of compounded with the fact that Miguel earlier today also posted about that. Let me pull it up. I thought I had it at the ready too. I swear I'm prepared tonight. He posted this on Twitter today, late afternoon. It said, quote, "I've made a lot of mistakes in my time. I've always apologized and did my best to put a better foot forward after. I don't preach hate, and I don't take any pride in being hateful. I'm a man of faith. I believe in forgiveness and only ever preach that. I'm a different man today." So, I think the most reasonable way of approaching this, of thinking about what exactly happened here is, I think someone from higher up in Warner Bros. Discovery, maybe even just the legal department, did a little due diligence, did a little background check, checked out a few things, right? And they ended up going back down to Tony and say, "Hey, this guy, we scoured the stuff, and he's got some hate messaging that occurred, on social media at these instances, and this is possibly a liability for us, so we don't want him around." And I think that's the most logical explanation. That's what some of us were theorizing. I saw so many things. He's having a very serious family issue and whatnot, which could be. Don't get me wrong, right? But why would anyone swoop in to fire him, to remove him from his contract because he has a serious family situation? It's the kind of thing that it doesn't compute. But the legal department of Warner Bros. Discovery doing a little due diligence, making sure this guy's not going to cause any issues for them moving forward, and then telling Tony Khan, well, or whoever, right? We can't hire this dude because yeah, you know? And they're like, okay. Then we're not going to do this. It sucks, but you know what this is? This is a Jay Briscoe situation all over again. It's a Jay Briscoe situation all over again, where, you know, Jay unfortunately, you know, said the things he said, and it followed him no matter how much he tried to make amends, and had support from professional wrestlers all over the place saying, no, you know, like, he's not like this, and so on and so forth. That's ultimately what kept him off of AEW television and TV proper, right? You know, it's the same type of situation here, and it sucks. It sucks, but you know, it's like, man, whatever you post on the internet, stays. And even though you delete it, especially if you're a public figure, someone somewhere has a copy of it. Somewhere it's been cached, archived somewhere. It exists. It's out there, and it sucks. Something that he wrote like what was it, like 6-7 years ago at this point? Maybe not that much. Hang on, 5-6 years ago, and it's no, that's right, 6-7 years ago. I am right. That'd be around that time period. You know, it sucks. You know, because at the same time, there was a time, you know, before everything got very, very straight and narrow on the internet, and we really started holding people accountable for stuff, it was the Wild West out there. There's a lot of shit that existed out there. And a lot of people were posting a lot of really wild stuff that you could never get away with now. Times have changed. Is he, as he says, you know, a different man than he was back then, and so on and so forth? I don't know. I can't tell. I don't know the guy. You don't know the guy either. You know, is he just saying that because he wants to garner sympathy? He could. You know, he said, I'm taking a break from wrestling. Please respect my privacy on Sunday. Then on Monday, he's posting something else. I'm like, all right. I mean, if he wants to clear the air as much as possible, good for him. And, you know, what he posted today was it's as clear as we're going to get in this situation, to try and understand what the hell happened, why he was fired, essentially, without someone outright saying these are the specific reasons why, which we'll probably never know. I mean, it sucks. It legitimately sucks, because this was a huge opportunity for him. It was the biggest opportunity he had. It's the second time someone brings in the Rascalz to their company and he gets left behind. You know, it happened in WWE years ago when Wentz and Desmond Xavier, I got around to it. Thank you. When they joined NXT, he was supposed to be he was part of the package deal, and now probably was hoping for the best here, and it didn't turn out that way. And it's got to suck too, because the announcement is made, your name is in the press, and you're excited. You get the contract. You have signed it at this point, so you're excited for everything that's about to happen, and it is an ultimate rug pull. So I don't blame him right now if he's feeling down in the dumps. And I see Chad bringing up the Zachary Wentz situation. But here's the thing. The Zachary Wentz situation requires a whole lot of context. And not even all that much context, but it's out there and it exists. Zachary Wentz didn't didn't start posting pictures of himself dressed up as Hitler. This was a guy who was tricked by his trainer when he was young. He was like 19, 20 years old, right? And his trainer, David Christ, I think it was David, who was later proven to be like an abusive, manipulative son of a bitch, right? This is a guy who was called out and speaking out and was blacklisted from the industry. He was with Zach Wentz, and he told him, it's like, yeah, hey, he was shaving. He said, shave your mustache off. Shave everything off except the little Hitler mustache. And then, we'll take pictures, do the salute and everything, and we'll take pictures and it'll be a gas. But it ended up, what it was is Chris held on to the picture so that he could blackmail him. And he used it to blackmail him on one occasion. And then after, sent it to Wentz's ex, who then plastered that all over the internet because she was completely unhinged. And that's what got him fired from WWE, when it was just something that he did as a stupid kid, and not because he's a raging Nazi, because tons of people have come out since to stick up for him, MJF notwithstanding. MJF came out to stick up for him and make sure that people understood that whatever happened here is all nonsense. So that's an entirely different situation, where it's just like, lighthearted, maybe distasteful, sure, but lighthearted goofing off against people that you think are your friends, but are just out to get you. So if anything, I'm glad for Zachary Wentz that he's getting another lease. At this. Look, it's a sucky situation. I don't know what to do. I don't know what else to say. Other than I think like it's another situation. It's another, what's the word I'm looking for? Cautionary tale. There you go. That's what I was looking for. It's another cautionary tale it's another cautionary tale in regards to posting things on the internet. It's there forever now, folks. And here's another bit of advice. You don't have to tweet everything that goes on in your mind. You really fucking don't. Some thoughts are meant to be private, and you don't need to tweet everything that's on your mind. You can keep some stuff to yourself. Some thoughts just should stay between you and yourself. You don't have to tweet everything that goes through your mind. All right, more contract news. Let's start with things happening in All Elite Wrestling. Dual contracts have been announced for multiple CMLL performers. That's right. Tony Khan has revealed that Hechicero, Persephone, and Mascara Dorada are under deals with both promotions. Hechicero has been a mainstay in AEW and Ring of Honor over the past year as a member of the Don Callis family, while remaining a regular in CMLL. Hechicero was among the 6 men featured in the Survival of the Fittest elimination match for the Ring of Honor title at Final Battle last month, and will face Roderick Strong in a number 1 contenders match for the CMLL heavyweight title this Friday in Arena, Mexico. That has already happened by the time we're at the moment I'm recording this, and Hechicero lost. Persephone, 24, began wrestling in 2020 and started in CMLL 3 years later. She wrestled Mercedes Moné, Alex Windsor, and Bozilla last August at Forbidden Door for the TBS Championship, and headlined Ring of Honor Final Battle against Athena for the Women's World Championship in December. Dorada, 24, has only been wrestling for 3 years. It's still wild to me that I still forget that. But this is, yes, he is still, technically speaking, in wrestling terms, a baby. He's only been wrestling for 3 years, but has become a breakout star. He transitioned from Panterita del Ring Jr. to the current moniker and gained popularity as a member of El Sky team with Mystico and Neon. The 3 are the current CMLL World Trios champions, which they won last May. Dorada has held the welterweight championship since December 2023. Last September, he had one of the best matches of the year with Kazuchika Okada and Konosuke Takeshita at All Out in Toronto. This news comes before CMLL's International Weekend, with Ricochet, GOA, Roderick Strong, and Lee Moriarty participating, I should say. I'm not slurring, on the show. So, okay, first and foremost, Hechicero, I feel like we all knew. Like he got the graphic and everything, and Tony announced it, and I was like, wait a minute, didn't we know this already? Didn't we know? I feel like we knew. We already knew that Hechicero was had the dual contract stuff. And it was like, this is not news. This can't be news. But I mean, we can still celebrate. We can still applaud that. I think Hechicero is terrific, and that's really great news. Mascara Dorada, I think everyone sort of saw that coming. I think he's been in a dual contract situation for a while. I don't think the ink was still dry when Tony Khan put out the graphics to announce that all these people were signed. I think Dorada has been in the dual contract camp for a little while, for a few months. I don't think Tony would have featured him in the C2 if he wasn't an AEW aligned wrestler, dual contract signed. And everything that is said about Mascara Dorada is true. He is excellent. He has 3 years in the business, which I still always forget. And he's really being prepped by CMLL to likely be Mystico's successor. I think they want this guy to be the next Arena Mexico draw, the next big Technico. There's no mistake that he's in a team with Mystico right now. I think these are all very clear and planned out moves, and it's crazy that he still has tons to learn. He's fantastic. I think Mascara Dorada is great and is going to continue to be great. And Persephone is a very good choice. She's also very young. I don't think she's as advanced as Mascara Dorada is. I think she still shows her inexperience in multiple situations, but she will grow as well. And I think it's a solid pickup as well for AEW to add a little diversity, whether it's on the Ring of Honor circuit or in AEW itself. It's it'll be a little extra something a little more fun. Now, you can ask yourselves, why did Tony Khan announce all of this, right? Why did he announce all of this, all of these people all at once? Sure, on setting up the on the heels of the big international weekend over in CMLL. Sure, okay, as a little something on that end. I can believe that. Is it because maybe he also wanted to steal some thunder away from TNA and make sure that they get overshadowed in this type of news that will captivate the conversation and maybe drive some talk away? Look, I talked about it last Thursday, and I still believe that was probably a little part of his strategy. I'm not saying that's exactly why he did it, but I think Tony is Tony Khan in 2019, 2020 would probably not do this. But years later, with WWE absolutely being an asshole to him and setting everything up to try and put him out of business as hard as they could, and doing all those counter programming moves last year and so on and so forth. I think he's like, okay, I can play dirty too. I can absolutely make life a little harder for these other people, these TNA people who are showing up on the on cable, like on real cable this time, not on fucking Access TV, showing up on real cable, trying to get a sliver of the pie, right? Trying to get their own little parcel of the pro wrestling market. It's like, you know what? Fuck these people. Fuck them all. They want to come in and try to grab some attention away. And I said, no, I'm not giving these bitches an inch to breathe. And, picking up the Rascalz, picking up Jake something in the meantime. I'm like, all right. He's sending out some kind of message, that's for sure. I think it was just convenient. This is why, look, I've told you guys this before, and I think a lot of you have figured this out. Tony Khan signs people and then will sit on the graphic for as long as he needs until he sees a convenient moment to announce it. Until he's like, all right, I'm going to announce it here. And sometimes it's really, really fast, right? Like Andrade El Idolo when he showed up the first time and the second time, to be fair. He was like, he got the graphic immediately because of course. But there's others that he'll just stretch it out a little bit and he won't announce it immediately. You know, like Hyan and Maya World. You know, they were signed a few weeks prior to the graphic announcement, which was at World's End, right? Did they get it at World's End? I think they got it at World's End, right? But they had been signed like since November or something. Shortly after the incident. So you know, it's like he's been hanging on to these, and why drop them all at once? Why all three? Why all? Look, if he's starting to play the game like this, I'm completely okay with it. I'm fine with this kind of stuff. It's the chaos, man. I love the chaos. I'm here for the chaos. This is all above board. It's good stuff. Ring of Honor deal confirmed. See here, this is something that has all of these people, you know, picking up all these people has led to speculation. Even myself on Blue Sky was like, look, something's got to be up. He's got to have. He's got to be preparing something. There has to be something here where he's getting everything. He's getting a bunch of ducks in a row and just ready to do something with all of this talent. But from what I understand, we're not even close to a Ring of Honor deal yet. Here's one thing, right? Tony may sometimes talk in obtuse ways, right? But as far as we can tell, he doesn't lie. Like, he's not going to say, oh yeah, we're working on a Ring of Honor TV deal, right? There was a time he was doing that. You remember? And he'd say, oh no, let me say that again. You remember when we were talking about the AEW media deal? This is the perfect example. When he was talking about the AEW media deal, he'd always talk about, you know, he'd be comparing to football yardage, right? He's like, oh, we're not in the end zone yet, but you know, we're on the 40, we're getting there. And then the more he'd talk about it, it's like, oh, we're on the 30, you know, and we're close to scoring or whatever. I can't remember what he was saying, but every time he'd talk to people about it, he'd say how closer they were to the end zone. But, you know, he wouldn't outright say, oh, we're really fucking close. But, you know, he'd talk about it like that. And then people would ask about the Ring of Honor stuff. And he's like, oh, well, we're looking for the best possible opportunity. And then someone asked him at some point, well, where do you know, on which yard line, you know, calling back to his old analogy, on which yard line are you right now in regards to the Ring of Honor deal? And he flat out said, oh, we're not even on the field. You know, it's like, okay, so that's all we needed to know. We're not like, there are no real negotiations happening with anyone. And Tony will flat out say, he will say, if he is in negotiations, if something is going to happen, but the last time they asked him about the Ring of Honor TV, which was for the last Ring of Honor pay-per-view, I never remember the names. Was it Final Battle? It wasn't Final Battle. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He flat out said, yeah, it was Final Battle. He said, no, well, I'm looking for the option that works the best for us, right? See, he still hasn't found a media partner, and he's not going to move until he finds a media partner. But let me tell you, the day that he does find one and that he starts negotiating, we're going to know. We're going to know. But he wants a good deal. He wants a proper deal for Ring of Honor. You could argue that in the meantime, Ring of Honor is suffering, and I agree. It's not necessarily the best foot forward right now, but very convoluted way to say, I don't think that suddenly we've got a Ring of Honor show that has suddenly appeared out of nowhere and that we're serious enough to start bringing in all this new talent. Not if a month ago, Tony Khan was still saying, no, we're still searching. We're still looking. Until he says something like, we're in deep negotiations with a very serious partner, because it's not going to come out of the blue. It's not going to be something that's going to be negotiated overnight and settled over a week. These things take time. Look how fucking long it took Carlos Silva to lock down whatever he locked down with AMC. It took him a while. And he had been saying for a while, oh no, we got something, it's coming. We're going to announce it by September or whatever, right? And it didn't land on September, but he eventually did. So no, I don't think there's a Ring of Honor deal in the works because of all of this. I do not think so. But one thing I do think is that if the patterns that we've been seeing with Dynamite recently, where you're seeing more and more wrestling matches, I don't know if you've noticed for the past 3 weeks, and then again this week, you've got like 5-6 matches on the card. And this has been going on every week now. They're doing minimal nonsense and they're doing more wrestling. They're putting their best foot forward. The thing that makes them different from WWE, they're leaning into it. Dynamite feeling more like a Collision, where Collision has always been the wrestling show, like just top to bottom, just like match. It's feeling more and more like Collision. So it's like Collision, but with the, truly the big stars every week, right? If they do that and they focus more and more on pro wrestling, then you can get more people on the show then, right? You get more people on your weekly shows. I mean, they'll hopefully never fall. They'll never fall as far as a 2-hour show with 3 wrestling matches on it, but hey, you never know. Anyway, so there's another reason why I think these dual contract deals went through. I think there's a lot of this a lot of this is to prevent WWE sweeping in and picking up these 3 people, right? That I'm pretty sure that's also part of it. All right, moving on. Still talking about AEW contracts. Queen Aminata, she's sticking around AEW for a bit still, and that's good. Queen Aminata shared a positive contract update. While currently out of the ring due to a neck injury, Aminata announced in a recent vlog that her AEW contract has been extended until February 2027. Quote, on top of all the great news and great feelings, AEW also extended my beautiful, juicy contract until February 2027. Bro, what can I say at this point? I'm happy. Even though my neck is messed up right now, I can't wrestle. I am very happy and very, very motivated. I can't wait to go back. Good for her. Good for her. And good for AEW. She is tremendous. She is such a good wrestler to have around. And I hope she sticks around for a while. Again, like, and look, I've said this multiple times. If you have never seen Queen Aminata in DPW, you are not getting the full Queen Aminata experience. She is, well, I mean, you're not going to see her in DPW anymore. But if you did see her there, holy smokes, she's not quite the same presentation than in AEW. She's fantastic, and that's a lockdown for the future, if you ask me. And then a former WWE ID wrestler has been announced as AEW's latest signing. Tony Khan has announced Zeta Steel as a brand new addition to the company. During Saturday's AEW Collision Maximum Carnage, Steel made her AEW in-ring debut and went against Marina Shafir in a losing cause. She had previously appeared on Ring of Honor TV in December 2025 and wrestled at Final Battle, losing to Layla Gray. Last week on Collision, Steel joined the Skyflight faction alongside Scorpio Sky, Christopher Daniels, Dante Martin, and Darius Martin, replacing Gray for the time being. And before her time in AEW Ring of Honor, Steele was in the WWE ID program starting in November 2024, but decided not to renew her ID deal in October 2025. She made her WWE debut on the April 2nd, 2025 edition of Evolve, losing to Bryn Lee Reese, someone else who's gone from the company. After spending a few months at WWE Evolve, she wrestled her last televised WWE match on the October 22nd episode of Evolve against Thea Hale. And look, the last time I saw Zeta Steele, I believe, was 2 years ago, around when Marigold was starting up. In the first few shows, she was there. She was in multi-person matches, and boy, oh boy, did she stink. She was one of my go-tos for a while. Whereas, like, you know, when I'm thinking about wrestlers who are not good, like Zeta Steele, brother. And then I'd see her on a card and I'd groan audibly. I'm like, oh, not her again. Then she disappears. Then she starts working the indies. And I thought this was someone who was just going to do this for a while and then drop off. But she's committed. She's doing it. She's working. And what I haven't watched her match on Collision yet because I'm still working my way through Collision. I haven't finished it yet. But from what I saw against Layla Gray, I thought she looked better. Like trust me, she was bad in Marigold. She was really, really bad. And I mean, look, she's up against Layla Gray. This isn't Mercedes Moné, right? That you're wrestling against. This isn't someone that, it's not Willow Nightingale. It's not Toni Storm. It's not someone who can, carry you through the worst storms and into a good match. It's Layla Gray. Let's pump the brakes here. And I'm not saying like suddenly she's this revelation, but I saw more technique. I saw her more as a pro wrestler in that match than I had seen her previously. So I'm like, okay, well, at the very fucking least, she's improving. She's getting better. And clearly she wants to give it her all. She wants to really maximize. She really wants to be a pro wrestler, which I kind of doubted for a while. She's got a great look. She comes across really well on television. It's an interesting signing. We'll see if Tony can do anything. Can do anything with her. If AEW is a good spot for her. We'll see how it goes. I mean, she'll have room to grow. Maybe she'll get a spot opened up soon. Like, Anna Jay's contract is coming up sooner than later too. We'll see what happens there. I don't know anything. I'm not insinuating anything. I honestly don't know. It's just like pure speculation. She said this was her first televised match ever. Yeah, that makes sense, right? First, like, actual TV match. Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, look, I'm looking forward to seeing how good she was with Marina. And look, I don't think Marina, you guys know this by now. I don't think Marina is all that I don't think she's all that great as far as a pro wrestler goes. I think she's fantastic in the role that they've given her in the Death Riders. I think she's spot on perfect, actually. But the rest, I think her wrestling is average at best. Average at best. I don't think Marina is all, a lot of smoke and mirrors. A lot of smoke and mirrors in a Marina Shafir match now. I'm like, Zeta Steele isn't exactly in the ring with the ring general either. All right. So that, wait. To close up the AEW sequence here, we got a couple of surprise signings that happened at Limitless Wrestling last Friday. After MJF defended the AEW World Championship at the indie event in Lewiston, Maine, he revealed AEW was offering contracts to his opponent, Alec Price, and Price's tag team partner, Jordan Oliver. After defeating Price at Limitless Wrestling's Limitless Rumble show, MJF cut a promo asking the fans if they wanted Price and Oliver to be pro wrestlers or sports entertainers. He then declared that as world champion, he had a lot of say in AEW. And then he cuts the promo and so on and so forth. In an uncharacteristic move, Friedman approached the two and shook their hands and embraced them, and then immediately reminded viewers that he is still MJF. Price is an 8-year-old pro from Boston, Massachusetts. Oliver, 26, is from Newburgh, New York, and has been wrestling for 9 years. Most of their matches have been with GCW, but they have wrestled as a team 3 times in Ring of Honor in recent months, losing to The Swirl, The Death Riders, and Crew. This is tremendous news. I am very, very happy for both Alec Price and Jordan Oliver. Alex Price is a guy that I've enjoyed his work for a long time. It's about time he gets. He was always one of these guys where I'm like, how come no one is picking this kid up? He's very good. I don't know why people are constantly sleeping on Alec Price. I don't know. Like, there could be a lot of reasons, right? But yeah, he even had a WWE tryout. It's odd to me. So I'm glad he's being picked up, and I am with Jordan Oliver as well. And Jordan Oliver, when I was listening a little more, when I was listening to GCW more, and the indies overall, I was watching Jordan Oliver, and I was like, I look, let me put it to you this way, very frankly, I was not a fan. I didn't enjoy his work. I thought he was a long, gangly goofball, weekend warrior type of thing, where it's like, man, this guy he's not taking anything seriously here. I don't see what he has. And everyone around me is like freaking out over Jordan Oliver and how great he is. And he's like, yeah, he does some high fly spots. He's a spectacular, he does spectacular spots, but he's not a good wrestler. I never thought he was any good. I thought his look was terrible. I didn't think he exuded anything that made me believe that he was going to be a pro wrestler. And he was one of my go-tos. Where I'd just like constantly make fun of him. And he'd be one of my references of a pro wrestler that I don't like and that I think is not very good and is overrated. And good for him. Good for him. This is what this guy did. He set out to prove people like me wrong, that he had the passion, that he had the stuff. And suddenly, like, what was it, like 2 years ago? Was it 2 years ago? No, I think it was 2 years ago. I see him on a New Japan show. The one that they had the sponge sponsorship. It was a Hiromu thing. It was Hiromu's produce show in the United States. And he was booked on the show. And, I hear some things. I hear, people telling me, hey, Jordan Oliver's here. And I'm like, ugh. No. Like, he's here in a suit and tie. He's there with a suit and tie. Yeah, he's all dressed up. He's, he's taking this seriously. He's taking this shit seriously. He's, he's coming in, he's shaking hands. He's putting his best foot forward. And he come into the ring. And he had a good little match. I was like, oh, all right. And he had filled out. He had put on some weight. I was like, oh, now, okay. I still wasn't like 100% convinced, but I was like, okay, there is a noticeable improvement here. And that's all I ever heard. Like, everything I've always heard about Jordan Oliver is that he loves pro wrestling. And, he's a guy that always wants to help out, and he'd be on the ring crews for GCW. That's fine. Now you sort of hear him like, okay, it's time. When you hear stuff like, oh, well, he's coming, he's dressed in his suit and whatnot. I'm like, okay, he's taking his career to a next level. People are saying good things about him, and it's like, all right, well, you know what? Good for him. Really, honestly, good for fucking him. Because he really set out to prove people like me wrong. And now he's got a shot at the big time. And the last couple of matches that I've seen him in, I didn't think he was egregious in any way, shape, or form. I was like, he was on the Ring of Honor show, right? On the last fall, right? Or something like that. Again, not the final battle, the one before that. And I was like, all right, looks pretty good. I can't complain. So good for him. Look, like, this is the kind of stuff that actually makes me happy. that I'm not going to sit here and try to mumble and say, oh, well, and try to retcon. That's the worst thing. We're like, oh, no, I always said that Jordan Oliver had. No, I can't sit here and say that. Jordan Oliver was was a guy I would enjoy picking on, right? So this actually brings me a lot more joy than continuing a bit where, oh, this wrestler sucks. Where it's like, no, okay, dusted himself off, decided to really take this seriously, and it showed, and now it's paying off. And I'm happy for him. Now the test begins. Now we'll see how he'll fare in front of cameras and whatnot. But he's got his shot. And I know he's going to take it seriously. He's going to make the best out of it. And good for him. And isn't it funny? And I'm going to close this little contract talk on this bit of the contract talk on this note. Isn't it funny that both Alec Price and Jordan Oliver, the instant, maybe not the instant, but it's only once they distanced themselves from working GCW that these guys suddenly got better, that these guys suddenly turned into full-fledged, well-rounded professional wrestlers that are being picked up by a big league promotion. Isn't that interesting? Ugh, TNA. TNA, there has been a lot of contract stuff happening in TNA. My goodness, we've got a lot to cover, but we'll do it. We won't, there's a lot of things we won't be wasting a lot of time on. But here we go. Nick Nemeth has announced last week on the lead up to the AMC show. By the way, Slam Hub Wrestling, nice to see you. Welcome to the show. Nick Nemeth has announced that he signed a new contract with TNA Wrestling. He announced this in the lead up to the AMC debut. On Busted Open Radio, the former Dolph Ziggler confirmed that he has signed a new contract with TNA. Nemeth called the decision a quote-unquote no-brainer and said he's looking forward to the future. He first arrived in TNA in 2024 under a handshake deal agreement and has been a world champion and tag team champion while with the company. I'm happy to be with TNA. My contract is signed, he said. Everything is official now. Nemeth praised the behind-the-scenes structure in TNA, including Carlos Silva, Tom Dream, and Hunter Johnston. That's Delirious, of course, for those of you wondering. He also spoke very highly of the work of Lance Storm, the work Lance Storm is doing for the company as a producer. Don't have much to add there. I mean, it's a no-brainer that I'd re-sign here. Yeah, because where else are you gonna go? WWE canned your ass because your contract was probably way more than they wanted to pay for, your level type of guy. So, instead of just like taking the low ball offer, he decided to fuck off, and I respect that. Don't get me wrong. He did his shot in Japan where basically he wanted to wrestle Hiroshi Tanahashi and he got it, then he fucked off. So, Japan's off the table. I don't think he wants to go back. Does he want to work AAA a little more? Maybe. He seems to enjoy it. Who else is going to have him? He's probably not working for cheap either. Carlos is probably all real excited to have a former WWE champion in his ranks. So Carlos is like, yes. Nick Nemeth is my fourth favorite IWGP Global Heavyweight Champion. Yeah. Mine too. Can you imagine? Wow. What a coinkydink. So, good for him, but I don't, it would have been a little shocking if that hadn't been the case. Just shutting and closing down these windows here. Jody Threat has also re-signed with TNA. TNA Wrestling announced last Wednesday that the Canadian talent Threat has re-signed with the promotion, continuing a run with the company beyond her 2-year mark. Threat, a veteran of the Canadian independent wrestling scene, joined TNA back in 2023, working alongside Danny Luna to form the Spitfire duo. Threat has put a pair of reigns as the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Champions, and she's worked as a singles talent on the TNA roster, Following her split with Luna in 2025, she remains a busy wrestler in the independent scene as well, wrestling an extra 48 matches last year, along with her TNA commitments. I've always liked Jody Threat. I've always liked Jody Threat. I think she's solid. I think she's very good. This is one of these talents where years ago, this is one of these talents where even years ago, I was wondering, why has no one signed her? Why has no one signed her? And even today, I'm like, why is she stuck in TNA? I mean, she wasn't even featured on the fucking show on Wednesday. You know, your best foot forward is the Elegance brand versus the Iconics that are on their way out of the company. There's some contract news for you, right? The Iconics that you feature on your first show on AMC are out the fucking door. What would have kept them? Them being TNA, to make it a loser leaves town match and just have some fucking fun with it. Tom Dream and Delirious. Anyway, so Jody Threat still with TNA. So is Cody Deaner, aka a hometown man. He also revealed that he has re-signed with TNA. Deaner announced the news on the I Love Wrestling podcast, noting that it's all of these podcasts that get these interviews, and these are all places I have never heard of them. Never heard of most of these places that get these interviews. To be fair, I don't necessarily seek new podcasts out. I have my rotation set down, and I'm fine with it. I'm comfortable with it. So, you know, I'm not looking for any necessary additions. So it's fine. Deaner announced the news on the I Love Wrestling. Okay, we said that. Quote, it's my personal goal in this new era of TNA to win gold. I mean, we've put our name on the history books of having this new era of new fans on AMC. How many new fans are we gonna? Anyway, I want my name in the history book that the hometown man has won a championship in TNA. That means I have to stay in TNA and have to be on the team. I actually have some breaking news. Hometown Man has officially put pen to paper and I have re-signed with TNA Wrestling. So I'm officially re-signed with TNA. I am on the team. I'm ready to take TNA with the next level of TNA. This is sweet. So there you go. Good for him. I mean, I think he has a gimmick that works for TNA. It's a goofy, over the top gimmick, and if he gets over, if it gets over, WWE will scoop him up. So there you go. Cedric Alexander has also re-signed with TNA Wrestling. Fightful Select reported the news, but did not give any details on contract length or other terms. His deal was originally up around last October's Bound for Glory, but he's wrestled for TNA 8 times since then, most recently in early December. That was his last match anywhere. The 36-year-old made his way to TNA in June 2025, nearly 6 months after his multi-year WWE run came to an end. He's been active on the indies as well, competing frequently for Deadlock Pro and House of Glory, along with a few others. So there you go. I know a lot of people were disappointed that he didn't show up in AEW to do the Hurt Syndicate thing again. I will maintain my the same position that I have every time these types of situations happen. I don't want WWE gimmick reunions in AEW. I wasn't particularly excited about the Undisputed Era coming around again. That's for the other place. You got over in the other place doing the gimmick here. You don't have to bring it all over, right? The Hurt Syndicate, they came in as a tag team with their manager, and I was like, well, that's fine. It's kind of like the Road Warriors and Paul Ellering, right? That was the package, right? That's fine. It doesn't bother me, but like bringing back Cedric to do this as well, I'm like, okay, now we're getting I wasn't into it. So I'm glad we didn't necessarily go down that route. So, but I mean, good for him that he still has some work. And during the show itself, one of the big reveals, one of the big surprises, I'm still wondering if this was the surprise out of left field that they were promising, that there was going to be something out of left field that was going to happen. We had Daria Ray, Sonya Deville, who showed up to be an authority figure. Ooh, she's going to be involved in an authority figure feud against Santina Marella. Ooh, I got my my WWE Raw 2006 shivers. Ooh, nothing like continuing on 2-decade-old ideas and call them creative. Ooh. I've always liked Sonya Deville. That's not the point. It's nothing against Sonya Deville. I have always had a soft spot for her. I always thought she was very good in this role. But holy shit, is this really all they have? You know, like, again, like, this is more of a reflection on the booking than on her. She went on the Busted Open radio because, of course, and said she signed a 6-month deal with TNA and she feels it can become long-term. Oh boy. I signed a 6-month deal. I'll tell you guys that, but I plan on seeing it through. I sure hope you will, because if you don't, you risk a little something that we like to call breach of contract. I'm having a lot of fun. Everything is going great so far. And as long as it's a continuously mutually beneficial situation, meaning I'm adding value and I feel good about what I'm getting in return, then I don't see why it wouldn't continue long term. So good for her. It does bring up the situation here, as Chad has mentioned, 6-month renewal. It's like, oh, wow. A 6-month contract. What are we doing here? And there's rumors going around that a lot of these extensions, a lot of these re-signings are all for very short periods of time. I've even heard people getting their contracts extended for 2 months as opposed to a year, which is usually the thing. I've heard, I've heard that this is something that's going on. And apparently it's pretty systematic that the people are getting re-signed for periods that are much shorter than a year. Now, there are some people who are getting re-signed for a year. I think Mustafa Ali was re-signed for a full year. But not everyone is getting that opportunity. Now, a lot of people are saying that's because TNA is broke. Well, I don't know if they're broke, but all of this, I have two ideas in regards to this, okay? I think on one hand, I'm not ready to say that TNA is broke, but I think this adds more credence to the theory that this is indeed an ad split. And I would the deal that they have with AMC is what I mean. And I think that of course it hasn't been confirmed, but it is. I think it's the most likely scenario at this point. Wouldn't you agree, chat? I don't, because they're not flush with cash. They're not suddenly like getting millions of dollars a year from AMC, because if they did, well, they could be signing their talent to longer deals. They could have upgraded their tech for the show so they have a better presentation. They could have used that money for a lot of things. They don't have the money from the deal because the deal is an ad split. It's a revenue split, which again, I say this every time. It's fine. This isn't a sign of weakness. It's not a sign that they got a bad deal. This is a typical deal that even AEW got when they started off there on the old Turner network. They got the ad split. It's the network saying, let's try it out. Let's see how it goes. And then we'll see how the cards fall. Of course, in AEW's case, the ad split deal was torn up fairly early in their relationship with Warner Bros. And they were like, we want to give you guys a better deal. We want to lock you guys down because you are doing tremendous business. Will AMC do the same thing with TNA? I don't know. Well, let's revisit this in a couple of weeks. Point being is that TNA, without necessarily being broke, They don't have an influx of new money. That's the point I'm trying to make here. They don't have the influx of new money to make all these sweeping changes, right? So that's like the first part. But the second part is, and hear me out here, and I think this might be the one that this might be the strategy here. They might be waiting just for AMC to drop the ad split and give them the media deal. Like maybe like they feel like within 5 months, within 6 months or whatever, AMC is going to upgrade the deal. They're going to upgrade the deal within 6 months or so. And then everyone who's on these short-term contracts then will be able to renew their contracts with better terms. You see how that goes? It may be, this is just a maybe. Or maybe in 6 months is when they get their first ad split payment, or in 3 months or whatever. And maybe once they get the ad split payment, then they can extend the contracts. Then they can see what kind of money is going to be coming in and so on and so forth, and plan things out better. Maybe it's a little touch and go on that end right now, just waiting for money to come in. I think that's the strategy. More than I have a feeling that's more of the reality as opposed to them being broke. Now, look, it could also mean that they're broke and that they absolutely need this money and they can't pay anyone past a certain date. And they absolutely need, let's say, the ad split revenue on this date to be able to extend people further because they don't have the money past a certain date. That could absolutely be a possibility as well. But we don't know. We don't know anything. Everyone is really fucking tight-lipped about all of this here. Everyone, even people, even like insiders in the TV business are tight-lipped about it. Like, forget the dirt sheets. Forget Meltzer and SRS and the rest, right? And Mike Johnson. Forget those people. I'm talking Hollywood Reporter, Variety, People Magazine. Maybe not People Magazine, but like the trades. Like, not even people who aren't in the wrestling bubble are leaking this news to the Hollywood Reporter saying, hey, you know what? AMC's new deal with this wrestling company? Yeah, I got the deets for you, No one. Is it because no one cares? Could be. Could be that no one at the Hollywood Reporter is looking to ask because they don't give a shit. It could be. It is TNA after all. But it's curious. All I'm saying is that it's curious that it hasn't even been leaked by, non-wrestling affiliated television media, which is something that could be leaked. Just like the WWE deal was leaked. Just like the AEW deal was leaked. It wasn't Tony Khan who announced the details, right? They were leaked. All of this was leaked. And a lot of these things are leaked on purpose. You know how that goes. Anyway, that's my take. Being broke could be an option, but I don't think that's what it is. I think TNA is waiting for money. I think TNA is waiting for the cash to come in. That's mostly it. Elena Black also showed up at the TNA on AMC show, to the shock and dismay of everyone. And was this the out of left field signing? Like, they announced that there was going to be a debut, a out of left field debut. And I haven't figured it out. I still don't know who it is. Because to me, out of left field would mean something so surprising and impactful because of the surprise. I was like, oh shit. Okay, this is indeed out of left field. Was it FKA Sonya Deville? To a degree. I don't know if it's impactful. It's a fun little signing. I'm glad for her. It's not something where I go, holy shit. Was it Elena Black? It's Elena Black because no one expected her to be wrestling against her. Sure, because she's supposed to be retired, and yet she shows up here. And she made her debut for the promotion following a sabbatical from pro wrestling. Fightful Select is reporting that she is a full member of the company's roster moving forward and signed for a 1-year deal that will take her through 2026. So she got the full year deal. Black was formerly known as Cora Jade during her run in NXT, holding the NXT Women's Tag Team titles at one point. However, she was released in May of last year, along with other WWE and NXT talent. After her no-compete was up, Jade made appearances in the independent circuit until July, where she decided to take a break from professional wrestling. Quote, "It is no longer good for my mental health, and I'll never know if that love for it I once had will return if I don't step away. I'm going to take the rest of the year off to take care of me and go from there." So there you go. I mean, again, like, I don't know what Cora Jade brings to the table. I don't think she's very good. I don't think she's very good. So, perfect addition for TNA Pro Wrestling. I don't know what to say. I don't know. Good for her. Good for her that she's got a job and that she has one of these, that she actually has a contract for a year. But of course, Carlos is going to lock her down because she's a former WWE wrestler. The Righteous have also locked up a tag team contract. Dutch and Vincent told Denise Salcedo on Saturday that they have signed with TNA. They are scheduled to challenge Matt and Jeff Hardy on tonight's pay-per-view on the Genesis show, which is already done, which from all intents, from everything I have heard, was an awful show. Again, maybe not as bad as the AMC debut, but was a bad wrestling show. The Righteous are here in TNA, and we're excited to see what happens for us in TNA. Everything that we're doing right now with the Hardys is really exciting and is going to play out even bigger, Vincent said. Here to stay, Dutch added. Wow. TNA wrote later in a press release, Righteous made their jaw-dropping arrival in TNA Wrestling in December at TNA Final Resolution as they confronted Jeff and Matt Hardy, leading to a series of cryptic mind games with the TNA World Tag Team Champions. And here's the great part. Here's the best part. The best part in all of this is that Matt Hardy is going to have two guys who are going to be very excited at the prospect of doing a broken Matt Hardy universe match, right? These two guys are going to be into it. They're going to be super duper into it and going to be, yep, whatever you say, Matt, we're into it. We should do one of those. And it's like, Brother Nero, I knew you'd come, and all, and the boat and the drone. And his father-in-law, what was his name? What was the name? He was the groundskeeper. His father-in-law, Senor something, right? I don't remember. But all of that stuff. Yes, TNA fans are clamoring for Damascus. I just realized Danhausen is a perfect fit for TNA. Danhausen, I don't think he wants to do the goofy shit anymore. Senor Benjamin. Thank you, Slam Hub Wrestling. Senor Benjamin. Yes, this is the universe that the Righteous want to be a part of now moving forward. I'm sure if Matt came up and pitched them the idea, they'd say, yes, whatever you want. The JDC wrestled his final match at Genesis. Yes, I will watch this. I will watch a wrestler retirement match. I know what the spoiler is. If you don't want spoilers, put your fingers in your ears or something for a second here. In a competitive match at Saturday's Genesis pay-per-view event, Eddie Edwards defeated JDC in what ended up being an emotional back and forth match. Who wrote this? Brian Rose. What are we doing here, Brian? Although JDC kicked out of one Boston knee party, Edwards followed it up with the Die Hard Driver and went to the corner for a second. JDC, seemingly accepting this was the end, instructed Edwards to follow through. Apparently they did I'm Sorry I Love You is what I heard. And that's extremely cringe. And I hate it so much. Yeah, the thing with again, whether they did it or not, okay, this mini sidebar that I'm going to go on here, whether they did it or not is not the point. The point that there has been multiple people who have done the "I'm sorry, I love you" or a derivative of, right? And what sucks is that when Shawn Michaels did it to Ric Flair, it was a legitimate, authentic, heartstring pulling moment where you're like, fuck, it's like, and it really did hit you in the gut, right? Now everyone fucking does it. Now it's rote. No one gives a shit anymore. Now it's just like, tee-hee, they did the thing, And it's like, it's been overdone. So now, of course, it's meaningless and it just lost its, part of the pun, flair. It's lost its emotional weight because everyone now wants to do it or have it done to them. See, you do that to Shawn Michaels. Here's your smile. Super kick. I found your smile. Slap. Yeah. What do you want me to say about the career of JDC? I don't know. I've got nothing for you. I mean, perennial mid-carder, fine wrestler, comedy guy. He's had a long, sustained career in the world of sports entertainment, and he's extremely lucky, and good for him. Hopefully, he was smart with his money. We got another guy here, former AEW wrestler, competes for the international title on TNA Genesis. You got KJ Orso show up. The fuck is a KJ Orso? Formerly known as Fuego del Sol. I wanted to say Samurai del Sol. That's another guy. Fuego del Sol. He was the mystery fourth participant in a four-way match for the international title that took place during the Genesis pre-show on Saturday. He was unsuccessful in winning the title as he took a pile driver from Eric Young and was pinned by champion Stax after he dumped Young. Because, of course, that's the only finish you can do in multi-person matches these days, is have the babyface hit a finisher, but then the heel champion run in, toss the champion toss the babyface out of the ring, and then steal the win. Like, that's the only finish that you can do now. Yeah, during the match, commentary noted that this wasn't Orso's first time in TNA, and had previously wrestled as Fuego del Sol on a Twitch stream back in 2019. Jesus, the Twitch days. Does anyone remember the Twitch days of TNA? Those were fucking surreal, especially because you didn't get commercials. Instead, you'd cut to Don Callis, like talking about the events that just happened, reading some chats, or what's her name? Brian Cage's wife. Shit. She was an interviewer in TNA at the time as well. I can't remember her name now. I'm drawing a blank. Those were some surreal days watching TNA live on Twitch. Anyway, since leaving AEW in 2023, Melissa Santos, thank you. Delightful lady. Since leaving AEW in 2023, Orso has continued to work the independent scene, including for GCW, which he wrestled for following his TNA appearance on Saturday. Last year, he lost a mask versus career match against Atticus Cogar at Joey Janela's spring break event during WrestleMania weekend. 1 month later, he resurfaced without his mask and turned heel, now going under his given name. No note as to whether or not he signed. But yeah, another guy where I'm like, good for him. Another person to show up here on TNA. So it's been very busy. And then we have little update here, courtesy of Mike Johnson on PW Insider. The word making around is that TNA champion Steve Maclin has come to terms with TNA and what is described as an extension on his existing TNA deal. We do not know a length. Maclin is currently taking independent bookings through April. And then there's the Cedric Alexander news. I would not be surprised if Macklin is one of these dudes who has a very short extension, a couple of months. I would not be surprised. So that does it for TNA, who are hiring right and left and letting people go and so on and so forth. Callum Newman has a signed and sealed deal. Weren't expecting him to be rushing out in front of the pack here with his New Japan contract news. Got Shota Umino, who's locked down, and now Callum Newman has signed a recent multi-year deal with the company. In a backstage promo over the weekend, Newman, who is currently feuding with David Finlay, bragged about being the only foreigner who is under a multi-year deal with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And that's a shoot. He also sent out a tweet stating that the contract is signed and sealed. So good for him. Newman is the leader of United Empire, a New Japan faction that Ospreay once led. Ospreay made a surprise appearance at New Japan Pro Wrestling's New Year Dash earlier this month and offered to help Newman and United Empire get through the rough patch they're going through. Newman didn't seem too interested in his former mentor's offer. He went to hit Ospreay with a steel chair before the rest of United Empire stopped them. Keep an eye out for Callum Newman this year. This is going to be a very big year for him. Remember that most contracts in New Japan usually are for a year. Shota Umino was re-signed for a year. But when I say most, I mean the guys that they're really serious about, they'll lock them down for a year. So Shota Umino, who is a guy that they're fairly serious about, they locked him down, but for a full not lunar cycle, but a full rotation around the sun. That's how astronomy works. And Callum Newman has a multi-year contract. And yes, it is a multi-year contract, multiple years that he's been locked into New Japan. They want to make something out of him. They see a lot of potential in him. And if things go everyone's way, this is going to be a huge breakout year for Callum Newman. Very, very big year for him. If you have any betting pools open, I would say don't gamble. Save your money. Buy yourself a nice meal instead. But if you insist, put some money on Callum Newman having a really spectacularly, well, maybe not spectacular, but a very, very, very good year. The funniest thing about that heel stealing pin finish in a multi-man match you were talking about with Stacks was the same finish Joe Hendry somewhat did in his match with Moose and Cedric, and he's the baby face. It's like, it's so dumb. Anyway, keep an eye out. I'm telling you, trust me on this. And then I don't have a thing for it, but I had heard some things regarding Sonata in regards to his situation. He was basically, what did they say? He was going to be on hiatus from New Japan, and people were wondering where he's going to show up next. And I had been told some things that I didn't want. It wasn't. I didn't want to put out there because, look, I'm not a scoops guy. That's not what that'll never be what I want to do. I don't want to break news. I don't want to, give advanced stuff, about wrestlers and, things that are, that have a very private nature to them. That stuff I don't want to do. But the news is out there now. There's people that have been talking about it openly. And it turns out that Sonata might be done with pro wrestling. He apparently is he's injured and he might need to have neck fusion surgery. So that's very fucking serious shit. And that's why I didn't want to talk about it, because it was a health issue. And I don't want to talk about health issues unless it gets leaked by someone else, unless someone else talks about it or the wrestler addresses the issues themselves, right? Because I had heard that, a bunch of things, there was speculation that Sonata just might want to come back and work in the United States, because I think he's been wanting to work in the US for a while. Bunch of reasons haven't been working out. But no, it's not just a thing where he wants to continue working in the US. There's a chance his career might just be wrapping up, or that he might not be able to wrestle as much or as he wants to moving forward. And even though Sonata is not my favorite pro wrestler, that sucks. That sucks because I want professional wrestlers to be able to have agency over how their career comes to an end and whatnot. And when injuries catch up like that, it fucking stinks. Like, there's no way to go about it. There's no two ways to break it down. It just stinks. It's awful. And I feel really, really bad that it may come to this. There's still possibilities that it might show up and wrestle with Naito and Bushi there with the Tranquilo crew as a mystery partner. And, he might be able to get away with that without taking any bumps or whatnot, in a multi-man match, for instance. And he might be able to get away with that. But, it's not sustainable and he might need the surgery. And look, it sucks and we wish him the best moving forward. Again, not necessarily my favorite pro wrestler, but this kind of stuff really stinks. This kind of stuff really stinks. No negativity, but Sonata's physical state was not good and a little concerning. All the best to him. Yeah, but I don't think anyone really realized how bad it was. That's the thing, Mr. Warren Hayes is not about sensationalism. He's about facts and figures. Well, we can get a little sensational here once in a while. I like to get a little sensational now and then. Oh, and Matt Taven might be heading to the NWA, but that's still a rumor. But I mean, if he does, good for him. Like he'll do great. He'll legitimately be great in that environment. So I've been debating as to whether or not I should do a full review of the first TNA Thursday Night Impact on AMC, which happened on January 15, 2026 at the Curtis Culwell Center in Garland, Texas. Monumental event for TNA, a very big moment in its history. The first time that it pops on a major cable network since, I guess, Spike TV. Which would mean like practically a decade at this point. If I could be getting the timeline mixed up a little bit. I might not be very specific on the dates, but nonetheless, it's a huge event for them. Finally getting some type of deal with AMC. And as I had mentioned much previous to this, whenever the situation did unfold. And people were talking about the deal in about itself. I was firmly in the position that it's good for TNA because whatever they're getting now with AMC is better than what they were getting with Access, which was zero because Anthem owns both Access and TNA, and TNA was basically making content for free for the network. That was essentially what it was. So whatever money they were making here, whatever deal they got is unquestionably better. Now, I went off on a bit of a tangent here because the premise of what I was starting to say that at least that I wanted to start off this video with was the struggle as to whether or not I should do a review of the show because I did a watch party on stream last Thursday evening, and that was something. And if you were there or if you've watched the video on demand since, I didn't think much about this. I thought it was a terrible show, like an absolutely terrible show, and one of the worst things I had seen. There were whatever bright lights had happened were just completely smothered by just the overall nonsense that happened on the show. So I thought, and I wondered, do I want to revisit this? Because, I had such a terrible time watching this show. Do I really want to revisit this? Is the is the live stream enough? As it is usually the case, I whenever I start to take some distance from a wrestling show, whenever I sleep on it and I come back the next day, then I have a whole bunch of new thoughts. I have new ideas popping into my head. There's things then that I'm like, I have to clarify this. I have to talk it out. I have to see what this is all about. Like, which is how I like to review things in general. I'm not great at the instant reaction, post-show type of deal. I like to create some distance. I like to create some distance between the show and myself. And look, this is exactly what happened with TNA's debut on AMC. I wake up the next day on the Friday and I've got, there's so many things going on. I feel I have to go over it. I have to review it in a certain way, but not in the typical way that I don't think in the typical way that I do reviews, because, there were 3 matches on the show. And there were 2 of them that there's really not much to say. The main event was okay, outside of the idea where I feel like the finish was completely fumbled. I feel like the finish was just completely messed up because they went for the ref bump and the ref was completely out of position, right? I don't know if you noticed this, but the referee was completely out of position where he was supposed to be right there and avoid getting hit. And Santana sort of turned around and waved at him. He was completely out of position. Like, the whole thing was a complete mess. It was a complete mess, at least the finish, to the point that TNA somehow managed to go overtime. And their big final angle that they wanted to, or that they had to put on TV to hype Genesis, their big main event angle, wasn't even showed. They did it dark and then threw it up on social media, which is hilariously preposterous. Someone has to explain to me how with 3 fucking wrestling matches on a 2-hour show, you manage to go overtime and are then unable to put on television on your debut the big angle, which is supposed to carry you in your go-home show for your big Genesis pay-per-view that's happening over the weekend. That, folks, is what we technically call incompetence. There is no way there's no other way to put it. And I would say overall, creatively speaking, this show was an utter display of incompetence. And I'm not just talking about the visa issues, which should have been worked out by now. If you've got 2 of your top performers that you want for the show, you sort of handle this, way down the line. You sort of handled this months ago, right? Because this show's coming up. This show's coming up and it's been in the can for a long, long time. You get the office on it and you make sure that your Knockouts World Champion and your X Division Champion, 2 people who you could probably count on to have a decent to good match on this on the show, which was desperately needed. You could at least try to make it so that all of their paperwork is in order so that they can be on the show. Now, I know in the case of Leon Slater, there's I've heard both sides, right? When I say both sides, I've heard the side of the visa issues being one thing, but I've also heard the side of WWE coming in and swooping him up and saying, no, he can't be on your debut show. He's going to come, work for us while we're in the UK. Now, whatever side that you decide to believe at this point, because I don't think we have a definite answer. I don't think so. But both sides are preposterous. Both sides are absolutely preposterous. Like I said, if Leon Slater couldn't perform because his visa stuff wasn't in order, then that is an administrative failure. That means that this company is incompetent at its very core. If he can be there, if his working visa issues aren't settled, that's just flat out incompetence. That should be a top priority. Now, on the other hand, if you believe the WWE scooping him up thing, that's also extremely preposterous and shows the type of relationship, exactly the type of relationship that WWE and TNA have. And we have to stop listening to people say that it's a good relationship, that it's a back and forth, and that everyone is respected. Because if your partner did indeed respect you in this circumstance where you are debuting on a major cable network, you're having your first show there, and if they respected you, they would leave you do whatever you want. They would not swoop in and say, hey, this one talent that you're using here, we're going to use him instead. What kind of relationship is that? How does that even work? Isn't he contracted to TNA unless there's something we don't quite understand? Unless there's a little something here that we don't quite get. And that's how TNA contracts work moving forward, that WWE can claim them at any given moment. I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know. But if that is not the case, how the fuck does Carlos Silva give the okay to this? How is he not calling, Nick Khan or Triple H or whoever the fuck and throwing a fit and saying, motherfuckers, this guy is going to be featured on my first show for my promotion. So no, he's not going to wrestle for you guys. He's staying with me. But no, he just goes and, Carlos Silva is there, in the audience and looking like a wannabe FBI agent, with his little jacket and his hat, and coming in to put the titles on the champions and just smiling, Meanwhile, WWE is just coming in, scooping up his talent and heading off to the UK with it. Like it's literally the cuck situation. And he sits back and he smiles. So I have put on titles here and he. That is not an equitable relationship. That is not something that works both ways. This is something, as we all suspected regardless, if this is indeed the case and is what happened, this is a relationship that benefits principally WWE. And their main thing is they are going to swoop in and grab whatever top talent is breaking into stardom in TNA and is going to make them their own. That's how it's going to go. They've done it with Jordan Grace. They've done it with Joe Hendry. They're going to do it with Mike Santana. They've already started, and they're going to do it with Leon Slater. All guys and gals that TNA is actually building, that is actually promoting as a star. WWE is going to come in and claim them for their own. There's nothing okay about this. Like that's not okay. That's not okay. And then all you can hear afterwards is like, well, I guess TNA is developmental for WWE. I mean, yes, that's what we've been saying. That's what I've been saying for a long time now. And we have proof here. And I mean, I don't know why anyone would be watching another developmental brand for WWE. I don't know why anyone is pretending that this is anything else than just, another cog in the talent pipeline for WWE. We all figured this is what it was going to be, but it's becoming more and more transparent. It's becoming clearer. And remember this, right? Keep one thing in mind. We've had so many people say, oh, well, WWE are going to help. They're going to help TNA promote their show on AMC. They are going to drive eyeballs there. Look, they're lending AJ Styles to TNA, which, by the way, probably happened when they pulled Leon Slater out and WWE went, oh, well, here, look, as a token of appreciation, please accept these flowers. We're sorry, honey. Here you go. We'll give you your own little thing here. I got sidetracked. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the amount of effort that WWE put in to promote this, it was essentially zilch. It was nothing. Again, How is this beneficial to TNA? How is this relationship beneficial for total nonstop action? WWE only sends, NXT people their way, and they never say a goddamn word about it. They never promote it. They never share it on socials. They don't go around saying, our own AJ Styles is going to be back home and in TNA for one night, and whatever. It doesn't say a god. They don't promote anything because they don't care, because they've got their own shit to promote, because they don't care about TNA. This is just how it's going, right? And the more I think about it, the more I put brain power into this, the more I think that this resilient wrestling promotion that has never given up, that people have discarded historically, historically have said TNA is done, Impact is. How many times has this company been on the verge only to be resuscitated, whether it be by Panda Energy, by Billy Corgan, by Anthem Entertainment, and now WWE, and I'm sure I'm forgetting others, but these are just broad strokes here. How many times has this company been on the cusp and somehow always pulls out, always ends up being able to pull out and pull itself out and stay alive? I think this is the end. I think this is it. I think we're going to be hitting a wall here, because there is no way WWE is in a partnership like this with another promotion without having signed documentation, a contract, an agreement, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is. There is no way that they have done this without including their classic clause that says that WWE can buy up these assets anytime they want, that they can buy up TNA at a discount essentially and grab all the assets that they want. And it's just a question of time. It's just a question of time before it happens. I think finally TNA Wrestling is finally driving slowly, but still driving towards the wall. It's going to hit the wall. There's no way this relationship is some great beneficial partnership for both sides. It just doesn't. It just isn't. And the AMC partnership with TNA, well, we don't even know how that looks like. I mean, I think everyone is pretty convinced now, having watched this show. I think everyone is pretty convinced that this is an ad revenue split, right? Where essentially the broadcaster and the content producer basically split the ad revenue that is generated, I should say, out of ad sales, right? So that could also explain for the numerous amount of commercials that happened during this television show. That could also account for it. But aside from that, essentially what that means is that you're not getting any money up front. AMC is not paying TNA an amount up front like WWE does, like AEW does, right? And I want to reiterate, there's nothing wrong with an ad split. I don't have an issue with an ad split, because that's essentially a way for the network to say, okay, let's see how you perform before we commit to anything. Let's see how this goes before we outright start giving you anything, right? AEW started like that on the Turner networks. That's how it began, with an ad split, but that deal was quickly torn up, and Warner Bros. Sat back down with them and said, "Hey, listen, we're gonna negotiate something else, because I think we've got something here." So that might happen with TNA, not if they continue doing shit like this, but it is in the realm of possibility. Although I wouldn't bank on it. I wouldn't bet any farms on this. And I'm talking about the ad split I said, oh, everyone probably has realized that it's an ad split by now. because everything that TNA, they didn't show off. Let me say this again. They didn't show off anything from their production point of view that would make you think that this is there's this new injection of money and that the company can then do all of these great things. Now suddenly there's all the production is elevated and everything looks great. No, it didn't look great. It looked very low rent. It looked very bush league, quite frankly. The audio was terrible. The hard cam white balance wasn't in tune with the rest of the cameras at ringside. The directions, the shot, there's nothing here that gave you the impression that this company was just like flush with money and was making these big upgrades to come across as big time on its big night. But no, it had to stay exactly how it is. People who watch TNA on a regular basis told me, no, this is essentially the same thing that we've been seeing every week, which is preposterous. This is your biggest night. This is the only night you have to make a great first impression for a potential new audience. And what we get essentially is something resembling a parody of a wrestling show. Like if you were to get a bunch of comedians, who are specialists in awkward humor to do a wrestling show parody, this is kind of what they do, only it'd be funnier. It wouldn't try to take itself seriously here. This was a bad show. It was a bad show from top to bottom. And, on the stream after we were done, we headed on over to Eric Bischoff's live stream. We headed on because he had announced that he was doing a post show live reactions with JBL after. All right. And then I realized this was all under the Conrad verse. So, more commercials, essentially, more ad reads. Anyway, nonetheless, look, I didn't know what I was expecting, No, I do know what I was expecting. Hang on. Wait a minute. I do know what I was expecting. This is what I was expecting. I was at the very least expecting to hear Eric Bischoff be honest for once in his life and say, yeah, you know what? That wasn't great. And JBL to go, kind of missed the mark. But here's the problem that exists with these two gentlemen. In JBL's case, he is still employed to a degree by WWE/TKO, right? So he's not going to go out and shit on a business partner. He's not going to do that. And Eric Bischoff has such a raging hate boner for AEW that he's not going to turn around and say, well, TNA sort of dropped the ball tonight, particularly since he's been the principal and loudest voice in this. TNA will be the number 2 promotion with this deal. Of course, he's not going to turn around and say, well, I might have fucked up because he's a lying piece of shit and he's an egomaniac and he's not going to be, he is unable to have any form of real self-reflection and say, yeah, you know what? I might be wrong about this, folks. I might have said some things that are completely untrue, because he has to keep his grift alive. And his grift is WWE is great and AEW sucks. And that's what he has to do. So he absolutely has to continue promoting anything that WWE does, whether it's directly or ancillary, as the greatest thing ever, and AEW failing at every corner. Can you imagine? I want you to take a step back and I want you to take a deep breath, clear your mind and think if AEW had put on the show that TNA had put on last Thursday. I want you to think of how these people, JBL and Eric Bischoff and Bubba Ray Dudley and the rest, I want you to think about how they would be rightfully eviscerating the company, as anyone with the brain has been doing in regards to Impact, TNA Impact, TNA period over the past couple of days. They deserve to be eviscerated. All I'm saying is that another company, someone that is not adjacent to WWE and one that fits the grift, Eric Bischoff would be absolutely destroying this company and saying over and over, I was right. I kept telling you, AEW stinks. We have the proof here. They were unable to make a show. No. Instead, I heard things on that stream like, oh, well, they're going to improve. I'm like, brother, this was episode 1121 of TNA Impact. They've been doing this for 1,100 plus episodes. I think it's about time that they improve. I think, scratch that, they've had more than enough time to improve. But it's still the same shit over and over and over again. It is always the same stuff when it comes down to TNA. And then they'll have a bright period, a little spot where suddenly things start to connect and things feel good. You're like, it's interesting again. And then they do this. Then they shit their own bed. Then they trip all over themselves. They shit their own pants. Whatever issues TNA has, they're all self-inflicted. They've got no one to blame but themselves. And this has been going on for decades. There's something like cosmic about it that to a degree feels normal. Like the balance of the universe is okay because TNA is TNAing it up. I don't want to hear anything about, how they're going to get better, they're going to improve. This is not a startup plucky little promotion. This is they've been around for decades, folks. We got to stop pretending like, this is the young upstart. No. This is a company that has it has history. It has decades of history. We got to stop pretending. This sucked. What this means essentially, I've broken down the type of people who will say nice things about this show. Okay? Anyone who has positive things to say about this show, say that it was good. They're either one of four people. They're either working for the company directly, either they have an agenda, literally watched their first pro wrestling match that night and they don't know any better, or they have no standards whatsoever. It's either one of those four things. And what that means to you, a discerning audience, what that means is that you need to cut those people out. You should not pay them any heed. If you are subscribed, if you follow to them, you pull the plug. If you are giving them money to a Patreon or whatever, you cut that line of revenue. Stop wasting money on these people. They are completely out to lunch. There's something going on. As a wrestling fan, you should feel insulted that this happened. You should feel bad. You should feel like I felt when I came in to watch that show with the most open mind possible. I was like, I'm going to give this the fairest chance so that it can work out, so that I can be surprised. I want to be surprised here. And then they go and do this. Like everyone would have benefited. It would have been beneficial if TNA had a good show, but they didn't. They ended up completely making a fool out of themselves and professional wrestling in the meantime. And that's why I say, oftentimes, but when I do reviews, when I do show reviews, when I do the Dynamite review, the weekly Dynamite review here on the channel that you should check out every Thursday, every time I do these reviews, I feel sometimes I go really hard on stuff. I feel like there's some times where I'm like, where I feel I'm particularly harsh, digging at things and pointing things out. And oftentimes it's the same things because what do you want from me? I have standards. But I think that's okay. I think it's normal. Like I've had people, tell me sometimes, I think you're going a little too hard on AEW in your reviews. I think that was a little too hard. This went a little too far, so on and so forth. But I'm like, am I? Because if we let standards slip, this might happen. And I'm not just talking about AEW, I'm talking about everything. Not just pro wrestling, everything at all. Continue to have standards. Expect the best out of the things you enjoy, the entertainment you consume. Expect things that live up to standards, as opposed to just like shrugging and going, oh, well, this wasn't so bad. No, you can absolutely say this was terrible. That's why when you have referees going online to say, to sort of say, oh, well, you don't know what goes on backstage, this is very difficult. Or when you have, Paul Levesque hitting Twitter saying, or whatever way he communicates these days, saying, I wish people would just be fans, stop being critical and just be fans. This is how you know that your criticisms are working, because these people are affected by it. And there's two paths then that you can take. Once you receive those criticisms, you can ignore them, or you can take the criticism to heart and try to understand how you can improve. Now, a guy like Triple H, he's going to ignore him because he doesn't feel he has to improve on jack shit. But that's a conversation for another time as well. The point being is that there will be instances where you won't feel it's going to work, and the quality is going to slip, and it's going to become shit. And then what happens? Then you know what you do? You just stop listening, watching, consuming, however it is, whether it's a comic book, whether it's a music album. If it doesn't live up to your standards, stop listening to it. You don't owe your time, your money to these people. They should be working hard to make sure you're happy, so that you will drop whatever money you can, or devote whatever time you have to their product. That's how it goes. You should never feel guilty, and you should never be just a fan. It's basically, which again is insulting for fans, because I think fans should be able to have standards. Everyone should have standards. Don't join in these call to actions where it's like, oh, well, you don't know what goes on backstage. Listen, brother, every company has issues that you don't see. There are always problems in any company which they strive to overcome to create a quality product. Do you think that when Apple released the first few iPhones, that it wasn't a complete and utter upheaval in the company, and that there weren't rivalries and feuds and misunderstandings and anger? And do you think it was just like everyone sitting around going kumbaya and just high-fiving each other because they made a great product? Jesus fucking Christ. And nonetheless, despite all the problems that they had, they put out the fucking iPhone, which was revolutionary. So I don't give it, and it's the same thing with AEW. It's the same thing if we bring this back to wrestling. It's the same thing with AEW. It's the same thing with WWE. It's the same thing with New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's a question of overcoming your fucking problems. When you run into problems, how do you overcome them? How do you fix them, overcome them, work around them to continue to produce a quality product for your audience? Because you can't say on one side of your mouth, say, well, just be fans and enjoy the show. And then on the other side say, oh, well, you can't enjoy the show because you can't criticize the show because you don't understand everything that's going on backstage. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't expect us to just be fans if you also expect us to understand that it's really complicated backstage. You can't have it both ways. That's insane. That's insane. But this show proved to me that having standards and being vocal about them and being fair, which is also very important, being fair on how you feel about things are going is crucial. It's essential. Pro wrestling needs more critics, less influencers. This is what we need. We need more people that are able to parse judgment and be fair in their observations and criticisms in pro wrestling to keep things on a high level standard. Because why would you expect anything else? Why would you allow yourself to be submitted to slop? Why would you be okay with watching slop? Your time is valuable. You are an intelligent human being. I don't care what your mother says. You're a smart person. So you should be able to expect a professional wrestling promotion to give you something that will hit your standards, will make you feel good, and that you won't have the impression that you always have to compromise because you're just a fan. Makes no sense. Let's talk about this fucking show. AJ Styles opened it up with a rah-rah speech. I don't know why people keep thinking AJ Styles is going to wrestle in TNA. It's not going to happen. This is a guy who cannot wait to retire. He's been talking about his retirement for the past 18 months. And now this is going to be his retirement year. But this is a guy who's excited to retire, to never have to wrestle again. And it's fine. He's done everything he possibly needs to do. He's been a champion pretty much everywhere. He's made gobs of money. He knows he's not going to hang around the top of the card with Cody and Roman and CM Punk, and he knows his time. He understands all of this. I don't know why he'd do this. Anyway, he does the rah-rah speech, kind of like what he did, what was it, a couple of months ago on another episode of TNA, where everyone thought, oh, AJ Styles is going to show up, he's going to do something. He didn't do shit. After that, during the show, he sort of chest bumped with Santana. I don't know what, and he ran into Kazarian and he sort of stared at the title, and people think, oh, he's going to challenge. He's not challenging for shit. AJ Styles is not going to go wrestle in TNA. Just like, the Chris Jericho stuff. It's insane to me that people thought that Chris Jericho would be hopping out of AEW to go do things in TNA, especially when you know deep down in your heart that Paul Levesque wants to hang on to Chris Jericho to debut him at the Royal Rumble, because the debut is one of 5 booking ideas that Triple H has. So he's going to keep these ideas for himself. He's not going to give TNA Chris Jericho. He's going to take their talent and he's not going to give anything back. I don't know how hard this is. Oh, we'll let Sol Ruka and Delta show up, whatever Zarya, right, is what they call her. We're going to let them, who cares? We're going to send them all the NXT talent. It's so important for WWE to establish that TNA is on the level of WWE's developmental, and that they don't hang with the big guys. They don't hang with the big leagues over on main roster. We'll send AJ Styles down there and he'll give a rah-rah speech because he has deep connective history with TNA, but he's not going to wrestle there because it's beneath him. I'm not saying that's what AJ Styles says. That's the perception that WWE is giving off. Anyway, the one thing that AJ Styles did here was get this crowd really fucking fired up. They were really fucking fired up for Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, and Elijah defeating Mustafa Ali and his pals. Look, you know why they started with this match? Because it's the Hardy Boys, and and people were hot. They were into it. They were so excited. And you can go check on stream. The match was fine or whatever. It's like, it was a nice little party match. It got people into it, and you can go check on stream. I said, I hope that they're able to maintain the level of energy from the crowd for all 3 matches during this show, because you got a 2-hour show with 3 matches on it. I hope I really was hoping that they were able to pull off some kind of big trick here, but we all know how that turned out. Now, we get the Frankie Kazarian bit there. Then we have Gia Miller, God bless her, who's interviewing the Hollywood intelligentsia who was there from the AMC show Dark Star. What was it called? Shit. As you can tell, I don't have many notes. I just have general things. What was it? Dark Star? Dark Nights? Dark Winds? It was Dark Winds. With Dark Winds. that no one knows who it was. And here's the kicker. Here is the punch in the gut. No chyrons to tell us who the fuck these people were. No nameplates, nothing. It was fucking bizarre. And she's talking to these people, and I don't remember if this all happened in the same segment, but she's talking to these people, and then they show off all the other luminaries that are there. They've got a couple of more TNA wrestlers that I don't know who they are. They've got Candice Michelle, who has never wrestled a minute in TNA Impact, who is there. And she does her little twirly thing, and it's like, oh my God, like, it's the GoDaddy girl. And now this is there's a generation of people who do not know anything about Candice Michelle being the GoDaddy girl. Like, there's an entire generation of people who have no idea what I just talked about. But she's there for some reason, and I'm like, okay, this is out of left field. But here comes my favorite part of the show. My favorite part of the show was all of this stuff. Because after they show off these people here, they cut to another side of the arena where you have a WBC boxer, right? World Heavyweight Championship boxer that no one has ever heard of, right? Who's sitting there with this championship belt. And then the camera sort of pans, and you've got a line of wrestling influencers. All people. I recognized one person in there. Alex Lejas was there. Otherwise, a whole row of people. And I had no idea who any of these people are. And the camera just pans them, and then you have fuckface Phillips who's like, and you have all these influencers like so-and-so and so-and-so. And I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I have no idea who these people are. And it's okay. It's fine. It's not something I consume. So it's just like, I don't mind that they're panning the camera across these people really quickly. The funny part, the fucking hilarious part of this is that these people were all set up on the side of the arena where all the seats were empty. And the camera was just hanging there, looking at the boxer, looking at the influencers going across, and you could see swaths of chairs, of seats, empty as it could be. And I'm sitting there going, I do not understand why they're doing this. Why are they doing this? What I was saying earlier, TNA tripping over themselves. This is exactly what I'm talking about. They cut to AJ Francis with another dude, right? A guy on the roster that you probably could have booked. He was there. You could have had him do a match, but no, he's just standing there waving, and there are swaths of empty seats behind him. And I'm like, no, two shots in a row, two completely different shots, different angles, different cameras, different spots in the arena. This is where they do it. And then you have, Eric Young, who's like in the fucking, all the way in the back. It's so bad. This was my favorite part of the show because it is absolutely some LOL TNA business. It was so funny that they just got in their way once again on this. Hilarious stuff. Anyway. Oh, and then they go back to the AMC guys, right? And they're talking it up and whatnot. And then Ryan Nemeth shows up, and he's upset that they're talking to the fucking AMC guys because he's like, oh, you're having a Hollywood get together and you're not inviting the Hollywood hunk. And this leads to a shoving exchange between Nemeth and one of these guys from the show. And he shoves Nemeth down to the mat, to the floor, right? Not to the mat, that we're all doing this ringside. He falls to the floor, and he's just like, he's giving like this goofy, cartoonish face, like, where it's like you half expect, the birds to start twirling around his head, rotating like a mobile, with the birds and stars. It's just incredibly cringe. And then at this point, I'm like, this fucking sucks, dude. All of this sucks. And then you bring out Santina Marella, and boy, oh boy, did we get a handful of Santina Marella. Let me tell you something. They were talking about him. He was on this segment. His daughter was talking about it in another segment, and then he was involved in the main event segment. Can't get enough of Santina Marella, guys. This is how TNA is going to win the wars, and they're going to become the biggest revenue driver for AMC. More Santina Marella. It's preposterous. In the meantime, look, you've got AEW signing, Jake something, the Rascalz, Zeta Steel. In WWE, they're doing their tryouts, right? They've hired Aigle Blanc from France. They're giving Starboy Charlie a tryout, right? And AEW's picking up Alec Price and Jordan Oliver, all of these new fresh faces. But TNA says, we're counterculture. We're going to push Santina Marella down your throats because the people want the Santina Marella. And I haven't seen Santina Marella in such a long time. I don't understand. I don't understand what his tone is supposed to be. I don't understand what he's supposed to be. Do I take him seriously? Do I take him not seriously? Because his gimmick is always like goofy, but he was in a very serious situation here, and he still sounded like an absolute goofball. I don't know what the thing is. Anyway, this serious situation was in. Of course, you've all heard now. The FKA Sonya Deville showed up. Daria Ray, calls herself the suit. Shut up, I'm talking. Yuck. Anyway, she's showing up to do something completely revolutionary as well. She's going to be an authority figure, and there's going to be a battle of authority figures in TNA, folks. Just exciting, compelling stuff. We're 2008 Raw. I got the shivers, man. Just excellent stuff. Then we finally get Perez Hilton. He's with the Elegance people, right? You've got Dana Brooke, right? You got Dana Brooke, who's retired and who's talking about trimming the fat from TNA, and yet she's still around. And then you have the two others. I don't know who they are. It doesn't matter. And they're there to reveal Mr. Elegance, that they're hiding this person under like a throw, like a a furry throw, and he's hiding under there. And they're there. We're going to reveal the newest member of the Elegance brand, and Perez Hilton is here. The much touted appearance of Perez Hilton. He was there. He just stood around. He just said one line, which made me laugh. Don't get me wrong. I thought his delivery was spot on. He was funny. But look, at the same time, I'm desperate for any kind of entertainment at this point. So I'm like, who's the reveal? Who are they pulling out here? Who is the guy that they're supposed to bring out from that's under this blanket? They're making a big deal out of it. Well, it turns out we don't know. No one knows who this guy is. Mr. Elegance is what he's calling himself. And he cuts a really long promo. No one knows who he is. The audience is completely stun-locked. I'm stun-locked. We don't know what's going on. People are saying, oh, it's Tyler Rust. And I'm like, I guess, maybe. But Tyler Rust is like, he's kind of up there. The idea was that they took a tubby production worker from TNA, and they gave him plastic surgery and whatnot, and now he's this guy. It's so bad, but it got worse because it led to the Knockouts Tag Team Championship, where the Elegance brand defeated the Inspiration in an awful match, just a dirt poor shit match. I can't believe that this type of match was allowed to be on television. I'm sorry to say. And I know, look, maybe they had plans for Danny Luna, but women's wrestling has come such a long way for it to fall back flat on its face when TNA basically tells people, hey, we're putting our best foot forward here. We're showing you the best that we have on our first night on AMC. And you give us this. This was awful. Now it turns out that the Iconics are done with TNA. That was their last match. Their contracts were, or whatever, they were done after this match. As long as they don't show up on anything that I watch regularly, I have no issues with that. No issues in the least. And then we have Ariana Grace here, and she's with the Stacks dude. The NXT people, right? Essentially are there, and they're talking about Santina Marella because, it's like Poochie. Indy Hartwell then, she's there and she cuts a promo and you're like, oh yeah, Indy Hartwell is here. I am continuing to not watch this promotion. And she gets insulted by the Elegance people. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care about this. Like, I am not watching this moving forward. They're setting up this, but I couldn't care less. So this is then followed up by an angle, because yes, now we're getting nothing but angles. We're getting nothing but talk. There was so much promos and stuff, and so this is where they announced that Dani Luna is not going to be at Genesis because of the visa issues. I'll tell you what, Dani Luna she dodged a fucking bullet. She dodged a bullet not being on this show. Very excited for her to cut ties with these people and find any kind of other work. Very excited for her. This is someone who does not deserve to be associated with this fucking roster. Anyway, Lei Ying Lee, who is the Knockouts champion, basically comes out and she says, she's with Zaya Brookside for some reason. I don't know. Again, I don't care. And she says, look, I'll open challenge. I'll take on all comers. And that's when they bring in the NXT people, Delta and Zaria and Sol Ruka, who are hilarious as a tag team that don't get along, I guess. The odd couple, right? That's the gimmick. It's not that they don't get along. They're just an odd couple. Then Santino Marella, he's back. I tell you, we can't get enough of Santino Marella. And he tells Cedric Alexander that Leon Slater has visa issues, so the X Division champion won't be able to wrestle at Genesis. So instead, Santino says that he'll get a title later, but for Genesis, he's going to give him a match against Moose and Joe Hendry. They do a bit where, I don't want to say his name because he's going to appear. Why? Like, at this point, I'm like, why would you, do you hate Joe Hendry? Is that the thing? Like, why not? Anyway, he says his name, but he doesn't appear. He gets a call from Joe Hendry on his phone, and it's all extremely cringe. And talking about cringe, the System cut a promo, putting over Eddie Edwards and JDC's match at Genesis. And it was incredibly underprepared. The guys didn't know what to say. It was like, brother, I'm going to tell you something. Brother, you're my brother. And, I'm not going to go soft on you, brother. Brother, I hope you don't, brother, go soft on me. Let me tell you, brother. I'm like, oh, Jesus. You're like a brother to me, brother. I just wanted, it was incredibly bad. It was incredibly bad. Then, because we're not done, Carlos Silva shows up to welcome Dixie Carter to the stage. Now, I don't know what the issue was, but she got booed out of the building. Now, whatever you feel about in regards to Dixie Carter, booing her out of the building. If you're a TNA fan and you were there and you were booing Dixie Carter out of the building, this woman who kept this fucking promotion afloat. If this promotion is putting on this shitty show in 2026, it's because of her. Maybe that is a reason to boo for her. But if you're a fan of TNA, you should not be booing her because she kept this fucking place afloat when no one else wanted it. She swooped in and saved it, is what she did. It's preposterous to me that she'd get booed. Funny, but still preposterous. Anyway, Bully Ray comes out and then hugs her because remember their feud. Remember their big deep feud. Anyway, Bubba Ray Dudley shows up to call the main event with Matt Raywalt and Fuckface Phillips, and he essentially mails it in. And there's a couple of I don't remember exactly. I talked about it on stream, but I don't remember. But there's a couple of occasions where you can tell Bully hasn't been watching the product, where he clearly doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know the name of Mike Santana's moves. Like, what are you doing here, pal? Isn't this the number 2 promotion? Shut the fuck up. Just go home, do what you got to do, right? Anyway. And then you get the main event, which is all right, but sort of goes off rails at the end. And I'm not necessarily talking about the ref bump that I was the ref that was out of place for the ref bump. Not necessarily that. I'm just the overall match itself. And hey, it took 3 spinning lariat finishers from Mike Santana to put Frankie Kazarian away. Not 3 in a row, but it took 3 of his principal finishers to put down Frankie Kazarian. Let that sink into your brains for a second. When the main event came around at this point, I was so unplugged from this. I was so upset. I was, I couldn't believe what was going on. Completely detached, frustrated, disappointed, angry. It would have taken a Misawa Kabashi level match here to get me back into it. I was completely glazed over. I was like, what the fuck did I just watch? It would have taken a Herculean effort to get me back into this. I watched the match. It was fine or whatever, but Jesus Christ, this fucking show, a complete and utter disaster. What have we learned, children? What have we learned? Never let up on your standards. Watch things that have the same standards as you do. Do not let trite like this become the norm. Call it out, criticize, be honest about it, be fair. I think I was extremely fair here. This was bad, unentertaining slop. Those are my thoughts. And that about does it for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you all so very much for making it to the very end. And if you're still here and you still haven't liked, reviewed, or rated the show, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should get the boot. I will be back tomorrow as my throat decides to climb up on me. Tomorrow, Thursday, with the AEW Dynamite review, which is a weekly thing that I do here, plus a live stream as well on Thursday evening. If you can drop by and join us, we'd be thrilled to have you. Otherwise, look, stuff is going to be happening, and I'll be back next week after that. And then whatever, the cycle continues, and I will continue to be around to give you the right way to think about professional wrestling. The only way is my way. Thank you all very much for being here. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.